Hey guys, it's Rise, and I'm back again for a second time in a row today with the one, the only, the Moletrap. And we're here to cast another game. We had some extra time and said, hey, why not do it all over again? So we are going to cast another BSL game with Trutacs and Dewalt. Dewalt being a Russian Protoss player and going up against Trutacs, who is a Polish Zerg. Both of these players are S rank, and you can find them on the ladder in the 2400 range on average. So this should be a pretty good game. They're playing on a map called Polypoid, which is a 4-position map, which you can see here that I've got up now. And Moletrap, I'll let you talk a little bit. Do you know anything about this map at all? I'm not super experienced on it myself.
Yeah, I actually, I was pulling it up and looking at it before we started. I don't recognize it. I don't think I've ever even seen this map before. It's kind of strange, but it does have kind of a familiar construction. Like, there's a number of maps that are like this, and there's one in particular that's played a lot these days that I just can't remember the name of right now. But this whole thing where you have your main, and then you have a natural, and then you have this third base that's a mineral only, kind of up on a ramp. And so, actually, maybe I don't know. Maybe I have seen this map, and that's why I'm thinking it looks familiar. But that's kind of a common construction, and so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And we do have the Protoss versus Zerg, so we're probably going to end up with, hopefully we'll end up with a longer game, I guess I should say. Maybe not necessarily, because we do have an early spawning pool coming down here for Trutacs, and possibly because this is a large map, it's going to be a little bit difficult to scout, so he kind of doesn't know what to expect. And this was during the BSL? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. This was one of the August BSL games, and I didn't actually catch this one live. I did catch some of the other ones live, so I'm trying not to cast those because I hate casting games that I've seen. But again, these are two top tier players. We've got the Forge Fast Expand, Forge First for Dewalt, and I was looking while you were looking at the map. It was an overpool, so. Typical build when you're wary of Protoss shenanigans, and
Exactly.
DeWalt can definitely play some shenanigans. And actually, wow, he's even thrown a cannon down. I think he scouted that overpool, sees the lings. He throws a cannon down before the Nexus. So playing ultra safe, and I'd say they're pretty even at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. We see that Trutacz is kind of saving up his larva, and he's got 2 Zerglings out, and so there's a little bit of cat and mouse here because Dewalt is hoping that he can see what happens. Trutacz is like saving up these larvae, and so it's like, are they going to be Zerglings? Are they going to be drones? Hopefully I can kill this scouting probe before they hatch so he doesn't know, but it looks like this probe probably is going to stay alive long enough. So he's going to be able to realize that he doesn't have to overreact and build a bunch of cannons or anything like that, and just go with his normal build with the expansion. So it's always interesting to see in PvZ early game how the scouting affects the little details that the players make about the changes in their build to try and react to the economic advantage or disadvantage that they would get from it. So, but it looks like it's going to turn into a macro game because he has made drones instead of Zerglings, so there's not going to be any kind of early bust, and there were no early shenanigans, although it's definitely a good idea to be suspect of a possible proxy 2-gate these days.
For sure. I actually just did a best of 5 cast of Jaeyoon versus Stryker, and Jaeyoon is a American Zerg player, but when he plays against Zerg, he switches to Protoss. So it was a PvZ, and there was one match in particular where, if you haven't watched it, spoiler alert, he lost because his scouting probe died before he could see the Ling all in coming his way. So he had a single cannon, and he had a gap in his wall so you could get through, and he didn't know that there was a dozen and a half lings heading his way, and just like that, he lost. And why did he lose? Simply because the probe died. So
Yeah.
what you were talking about, those 3 larvae just hanging out waiting, it really is so critical to the Protoss to understand what's coming out of that, because that completely defines their reaction. And if he has to go in blind, it's actually a huge disadvantage because you can either play it like, oh, he's probably just droning and flip that coin. But if you're going to play conservative, you've got to spend some money on, probably a second, if not third cannon, and a couple more zealots to block up that wall. If not, putting some probes out to help block the wall like we're seeing Dewalt do right now out of extreme caution.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, it kind of works the same way for the Zerg at the same time. Like, the Zerg is also going to have to try and keep an eye on the Protoss and see what they're doing, because they could be doing what, Dewalt is doing and getting the tech going, getting a Stargate up, getting a couple Corsairs out for scouting and harassment, or they could have gateways in their main, and they're going to go in with a ton of +1 zealots at a timing attack, and so you have to kind of keep track of that as well as the Zerg player. And if you over drone while they're building a ton of zealots, it can go the other way around. It's the same kind of thing. You have to always kind of be worried about the opponent busting you in the early game until you can really get a sense of what's going on in the long game. And we did see that probe did leave the main and go and scout that third base. So Trutacs has been spotted. His jig is up, and he's getting extra hatcheries down as well, by the way. So it looks like he's getting his 5 hatcheries up. He's gone for the Spire. So I don't know if he's going to actually try and take air control with the Spire and try and, build up a Mutalisk force or anything like that. It could just be that he's using, like we see some Scourge coming out here to deal with the Corsairs, and I feel like we're going to see him probably get a Hydralisk Den and switch up into Hydras at some point, but I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, especially since he only had 1 gas running, so not too many mutas you can make with 1 gas. He's only got 300 gas saved up, so he's just really trying to defend against the Corsair scout. And Dewalt, he's stopping at 2 Corsairs. I think he realizes as well that he doesn't have to fear Mutalisk. But we do see a Zealot run by at the natural expansion for Trutacs, and Dewalt's got him in a nice little position here where they're able to have pretty minimal surface area that the Lings can attack. And he's going to take out a decent amount of Lings, which is probably going to force Trutacs to pump out some more rather than drones, which I'm sure he would have preferred to do here. So nice little play for Dewalt, but not going to accomplish anything from an economic standpoint outside of forcing a couple of extra Lings. And in the meantime, he's just buying time for his +1 upgrade, which just finished. So honestly, he might have been better off waiting until that upgrade finished. But maybe he didn't care too much, because we do see a Dark Templar out on the field making its way over. And I'm curious if he's going to head to the third or try to sneak into the main here.
Well, I don't know if you saw that he actually just lost a Dark Templar in the natural that did get in there and kill a couple Lings and 1 drone, but the Overlords were in fine position there, so it wasn't really a big deal. So he's already tried the front door. Now he's going to go for the side door and go for this third base, but the Sunken with the Overlord above it is in a perfect spot, so no damage is going to be done by that Dark Templar either. So a little bit of an interesting thing, like usually you would think of like Dark Templar as being a move that you go for if you've got the Corsair count necessary to push the Overlords away from your Dark Templar, and he didn't really have the Corsairs out either, so it's just kind of like throwing away a Dark Templar, which didn't really result in very much damage for him.
Well, one thing that I've been seeing in the foreign scene quite a lot is 2DTs, even if they don't accomplish anything, which we've got one trying to sneak away over here, and he's just outside Overlord range, and it looks like he may just get away by the skin of his teeth, but no, that Overlord, he lost him. Yep, I think he's going to make it out alive here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. A game of cat and mouse for sure.
Coming into corner him. Oh, he gave up the chase.
He sees him. He's got to see him by now. Maybe not with that Overlord, but anyway, what we've been seeing pretty frequently in the foreigner scene is this Dark Templar turning into a Dark Archon and saving up for Maelstrom, which is a lot of fun to see, because back in the day, I always used to wonder, like, I wasn't good enough to execute something like it myself, for sure, but always used to wonder, how come we didn't see more Dark Archon play with pretty powerful spells? You're not using Mind Control much unless maybe you're against a ton of carrier or, big units. But nowadays, we are seeing it more often. And with this group of mutas that we've got here, that we've got down here in the bottom base of Dewalt, going up against a couple of cannons. Oh, beautiful! Storm takes out. Oh, he hits all of them. He snuck that. Oh, look, he snuck that Templar right next to the gas. I didn't even see it, and I was looking for it. And that's gonna force all his units back.
sneaky little
Wow,
Templar.
great play. Now, just couple that with a Maelstrom, and you can imagine that those mutas would not have made it out of the base.
It's actually really cool to see that players are doing that these days, using the Maelstrom, because that's the advantage of the Mutalisks is they're so mobile and so fast. They can dive in and out, and one Maelstrom, if your mutas are clumped up like Zerg players always do, one Maelstrom locks them in place. It's one Psystorm to kill the entire group of Mutalisks at that point. It's really, really powerful. So I guess it's kind of one of these things that you didn't see for years and years and years, and now it's like, oh yeah, why didn't they do that all along? Maybe they were worried about the investment in the Dark Templar, because getting the Templar Archives and 2 DTs and waiting for enough energy is still a lot. And he's right on top of the Archon. He's not casting it though. What is he waiting for?
I don't know. Did he not? Maybe he didn't research it. Do you have to research it? I don't even know. But he clears up those mutas without any issue, and I just want to go back for a second. Oh, he moved it. Oh, I was looking at that, how well hidden that Templar was earlier next to the assimilator, and it's like half his body is clipped by the assimilator graphic, so I can see how a Zerg would just run in there and not suspect a thing. But we now are seeing Hydras and Lurkers moving across the map, and with about 7 or 8 Lurkers, 6 Lurkers, I can almost count. He's in a good position with a good spread. This is going to be difficult for Dewalt to break, even with 3 Templar. 2 Storms per Lurker to take him out, and he's got him spread where you can't really hit 2 at once, except for maybe these 2 bottom right ones.
Yeah.
And Trutacs just trying to look for an opportunity to flank the army as Dewalt ultimately engages. But the Lurkers, with how far out the rest of the units are, they're going to have to back up, because with this Observer out, they're not going to last at all. And given 1 Lurker for free just because.
Well, and we actually are seeing that Trutacs is going around the side for a flank, and is he going to pull back? Though it looks like he's going to pull back. Storms are going down there as well, and but he was in kind of a position where he could have gone in for a sandwich. His units are really clumped up. If the Storms can land on that group, that would be really devastating. But what Trutacs is doing right now is stalling. Right now, this clump of units is drawing the main army away. It's kind of baiting him and saying, look, if you don't deal with this, I'm going to flank you, or I'm going to kill your third. And in the meantime, Trutacs is taking this time to macro up and get more Lurkers and more Hydralisks, because what he had 30 seconds ago would not be enough to deal with this force of Dewalt's. So he has to kind of like run around and play cat and mouse for a minute to get enough forces that he can hold off this attack. And here comes the attack potentially. Looks like he is going to fall back. He's just poking in, doing some damage, and falling back to deal with the flank again. So Trutac's doing a brilliant job of just kind of, toying with Dewalt, making him play whack-a-mole and making sure that he can't actually go in for a bust while he builds up his economy and his forces, gets another base in the top right, and just gets all kinds of units being pumped out.
I think Dewalt's getting sick of it, though, because he's looking to just make a beeline across the map and go after either the 3rd or 4th of Trutacs here, and it looks like he's thinking about going to the 3 o'clock base, which would be a difficult base to go up, but no, he's just going to go right after the 3rd mineral-only expansion, and with a couple of good storms, he's breaking this Lurker hold here, but not before losing a ton of Zealots to the Lurkers, who obviously don't do too well, but beautiful storms coming in from the other side, clearing out the back line of Hydras. So if Trutacs was trying to bait him in and go like, oh yeah, that's all my units, you're going to kill me, in fact, he's going to end up losing most of his units instead. So this was, I think, overall a pretty good trade for Dewalt, but at the same point, he just went sub 100 supply, and he's going to get cleaned up from the Hydras on the backside. So not looking too good for him after all said and done here. Even losing every single one of his observers. That's unfortunate.
Oh God, that's really bad. Actually, he kind of needs a couple of those around. 2 Psystorms to kill a Lurker is not nearly as good as 1 Psystorm and like 1 Dragoon shot, or maybe it's 2 depending on the situation. So you need those observers overhead. He can make those pretty easily, but yeah, basically an even trade. And it was kind of interesting. Trutacs got caught a little bit trying to defend in a position where he wasn't really fully prepared. And so he did, like you referred to earlier, he did clump up his Lurkers, and there were a couple Psystorms that hit 3 Lurkers and 4 Hydras at the same time, so he was doing massive damage with those storms, whereas if Trutacs had like 15 seconds to set up and spread his lurkers out more, he would have won that, I think, more decisively, because he would have not taken nearly as much damage with the lurkers spread out, and he would have, instead of ending with 3 lurkers, he would have ended up with 6 or 7 at the end and been in a really good position. But Trutacs has 4 bases right now, and so does Dewalt. So it's kind of like an even economy. Who can remax first? And it looks like they're going to go back to square one and start playing cat and mouse again.
Well, Dewalt, in the meantime, sent a couple of DTs up to the top right here, which was exposed with no overlords, but he only got like 2 or 3 drone kills before Trutacs managed to respond to it and pull his units back. And I like it because Dewalt actually went for a little bit of attack up front to distract him while he sent those DTs in, which is a beautiful way to do it. Because as I'm sure most people who follow Brood War know, DTs do not set off the alarm when they kill drones or zerglings or probes. Right. They one-shot them, and unfortunately, for everyone who goes up against DTs, there's just no way to know unless you notice your supply going down or see the blinking light on the minimap, and that can be difficult to see when you're in the heat of the moment, which especially as, like Dewalt's doing again, this little attack, that gets your attention. You're looking over here, and in what? 6 seconds, you've lost a dozen drones on the other side of the map. And that can be a killer. Dark Archon out in the middle of the field all by itself is taken out.
No.
Big flank, though, coming around. And these Hydras are going to be cleaned up by Dewalt's forces. But, you know, they may actually feel okay about leaving with a battle won, having gotten that Dark Archon on their way out. And these Hydras are going on a suicide mission trying to take out a Templar, but he survives with 3 hit points.
Survives.
Unfortunate for Trutacs. But Trutacs, not in a terrible spot. They have even supplies, and he's continuing to macro up. And honestly, they're doing a pretty good job. It looks like he's pretty gas starved at this point, but he's got 4 gas going. So hopefully, all that really means is he's spending his money on gas expensive units like lurkers and hydras. And I'm curious if we're going to see some defilers here in the not too distant future, maybe throwing some plagues out or dark swarms. We don't have hive tech yet, though. We do have a queen's nest, and yeah, we'll have to see if he decides to go for it. Meanwhile, Dewalt again posturing for another attack up to the top right and can't make up his mind. Unfortunately, Trutac's doing a great job, not unfortunate for him, buying more time as he's just like you said, cat and mousing all over the place. But a DT in the 3 o'clock base is getting some drones. He's up to 10 kills.
Oh,
he clears out all the drones. That's a nice little pickup for Dewalt. And now he's going to set off the alarm bells. Oh, scary.
And there's an Overlord just chilling nearby. Could have been doing all that damage, and finally it runs over and is going to be able to finish off that Dark Templar, but not before it gets, a ton of kills. But look at 6 o'clock, though. We've got a bunch of Overlords, and actually I'm clicking on them. Only a few of them are actually filled with units, so it's not a huge doom drop like I was expecting. But this might be a counterattack drop that when any action happens in the main of the map, he might go in with this drop into the main base, try to take out those gateways, try and just get in amongst them. And actually, well, hold that thought, because we do have Dewalt going in to try and break this third. If he can do that, he'll cripple the rally point, basically, and it'll be really hard for Trutacs to actually recombine it. Oh no, huge storms going down over all the lurkers. He took so much damage from just 2 storms, hitting several lurkers each, and now the Dragoons can clean up very easily. There's just no units here. The drop has gone down in the main, but I don't know if it's going to be doing enough damage to equal the huge amount of damage that's being done, because now Dewalt is in on his rally point, so the units that are trickling in slowly are going to easily get picked off one by one as they come in here. This small force of Dragoons with an Archon and a couple Templar is more than enough.
Yeah, you know, this might be game right here. As I look at the drop, those Overlords, they didn't accomplish anything, and I think had he gotten Defilers and a Dark Swarm would have changed that drop dramatically, and now there's just no units left for Trutacs. He's sending the drones in to battle the Archon. I don't think it's going to go well for the drones. And the last lurkers cleaned up with a single Hydra trying to defend against a solid, 40 supply of Protoss units. And Trutacs, he's just, I don't know if he can stabilize here. I don't know if he can regroup and buy enough time with a couple of units to regroup. And with a single sunken here, Dewalt's going to cut through this like a chainsaw, through a watermelon. And there's just no way.
That's oddly specific. Have you used any chainsaws on watermelons recently? Do you know what that's like?
You'll have to watch the video when it comes out.
The storms go down on the lurker eggs, and lurker eggs have a lot of armor. It's hard for them to be killed by physical attacks, but the storms just melt them. The armor doesn't count. And so 6 morphing lurkers, which could have been his salvation, instead die before they even finish morphing. And I think that's going to be the nail in the coffin. Yeah, Trutacs is not going to be able to recover from that.
Oh.
And that's going to be the game. And I got to say, though, I feel like the crucial moment was the previous attack when Dewalt moved into that third base and Trutacs panicked and ran all of his lurkers in the exact same spot. And 3 storms killed like 10 lurkers. And it was just like he had no defenses after that.
I agree with you. I actually want to see if we can find that real quick here. The storms, I think, ultimately won the game.
Oh yeah.
And again, we had fairly even supplies too. But here we go. Yeah. So if you look, he did not. Yeah, he didn't take any time. So now it looks like he's maybe taking some time to separate up the lurkers, but they're still kind of on top of each other. I think we got another minute before we get to the big battle.
Well, you can see he has some lurkers kind of at his natural, and what he does is he's got them clumped up on his third, and then he's going to run those other lurkers in, and they're just not even going to burrow. Watch this. Here we go. They're all just going to be right on that same spot with the burrowed lurkers.
Oh, brutal. Brutal.
And they just all get stormed. So that was what, like 9 lurkers in the same area of effect of 2 storms, and he just cast a few down and killed them all.
Nice. Very nice.
Brutal.
Well, that was a good game, and definitely a fun one to cast. So what do you think about the you said you haven't paid too much attention to the foreigner scene lately, but what do you think about some of the games that you've been seeing?
Well, the full thing is I haven't been paying attention to any scene recently.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But it's exciting. I mean, I've been trying to get more into it, and I think I'm going to try and pay more attention to the BSL. And it's not like I'm saying it's bad or anything like that. I just haven't had the time. I've been working on other projects. But yeah, it's like the foreigner scene has come a long way, and I feel like the foreigners are still not quite at the same level as the top Koreans, but they're definitely a lot better than, it used to be that the quote-unquote top foreign players were kind of a joke to the Koreans, and I don't think it's quite that way anymore. I think that we're seeing like some really, really high-level play from these foreign players, and S-ranked ladder players from all around the world. Is just a pretty cool situation to be in, where there's these players that can play at this high level.
It's taken a long time, but they finally have a ladder system for this almost 25-year-old game. And, I don't know if you ever played ladder early in the day, back in like the early 2000s, but it was brutal. It was like, first off, you played on normal speed, which who the hell can even handle playing on normal speed? Most painful thing ever. Like, talk about turning somebody off from playing ladder. And then, of course, there was a ton of abusers, right, and hackers and all that stuff. And I don't know, maybe there's still hacking out there, map hacking, but it doesn't feel like it's the same. I feel like the players who are really deserving to be A rank, S rank are A rank and S rank. And it's great to see people play globally, all these different Korean talents and South American talents and European talents and US talents. It's like the game has a really interesting foundation built right now that, again, feels like there's a resurgence of interest and just continuing to develop the game beyond what we thought would be possible. I remember casting this back in 07, 08, going like, God, they're going to have figured this out in the next couple of years. We've got to be close to the end. And yet the meta continues to change. Yeah. And new maps are made and new strategies are made for the new maps, and it just continues to evolve and continues to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it took till the late 20-teens for people to start using Dark Archons, and now it's like a staple of PvZ. Like, it's something that you see not just one off and you're like, oh my god, it's a Dark Archon, I'm gonna poop my pants. It's like common and useful and very like effectively used and like a counter to Mutalisks basically, which is kind of like amazing that if you saw a Dark Archon in 2010, then it was just like it was a BM play because it's so ridiculous that no one ever used them.
Yeah,
so,
you mind control a drone or something, right, and try to steal it with your shuttle. Who did that? Was it like Reach or somebody? I don't know. There was a few games where a Protoss just like BM grab a drone. It was good.
I don't know. I don't remember that game, but it's definitely it was usually a BM unit more than like an actually used unit. Although there was that famous game from like 2001 or 2002 or something like that, where Go Rush got like, it was a late game. I don't even remember. I think it was Go Rush, and it was like this late game army where he had like 12 Guardians and 12 Devourers, and then like I think it was Reach that maelstrommed the whole group of them and like maelstrommed like 150 supply worth of units or something. It was insane. It's on one of the old highlight reels from the early days.
That sounds like something the Mantos would do. I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining me for a second game. This was a lot of fun. We got to do this some more, and
yeah, for sure.
I think we'll probably do the next ones on your channel. But as mentioned in the last video, if you didn't watch the last video, go check Moletrap out. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him on Twitch.tv these days. I'll have both links below, but there's only one Moletrap that I know of, besides apparently a German band, you were saying, something like that, right?
I don't know where they're from, but yeah, there's some band that like stole my YouTube URL, and I haven't figured out how to get it back from them.
One of these days.
Yeah.
We'll knock on their door.
Speaking of the Mantos, actually, I'm doing the 2004 Ever OSL is what I've been working on lately, and his group in the OSL is next. So I'm gonna be casting some Reach games this week, basically.
Nice. And that's 2004 Reach is like peak condition Reach too, isn't it?
Yeah. That was his peak was like 2002, 3, 4 basically. And it's amazing. He actually still played competitively even when he was in the Air Force. Like he was still like top shape, but like he actually stayed at a competitive level for many years, which is extremely difficult and rare. Actually, there's only a few players that there's a lot of players that kept playing the whole time, but there's only very few that stayed as a threat from their early days in the early 2000s on through StarCraft 2, basically. So it's kind of amazing that he was able to do that.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to watching them. I will definitely be watching them, so I encourage all you to do the same. And thanks again for joining us. We'll catch you in the next cast. Take care.